Welcome to my Unity Pathways journey, Mastery through MicroLessons. I'm John Alexander, and this is a true story of how I mastered the basics of Unity, one microlesson at a time. My role at San Diego State University Global Campus is Senior Instructional Designer. In this role, I guide and coach faculty to put their courses online. What's in it for me as an instructional designer? Leveraging games for learning. For example, chunked content. The material in Pathways consists of short, chunked, hands-on videos. Again, solid instructional design. Formative assessment. Test your knowledge with low-stakes assessments during the Pathways. Design documents guide instructional designers in creating courses. Similarly, they guide game designers in creating games. Ah, yes, authentic assessment. Pathways certainly contains authentic assessment opportunities as you create a 2D and 3D game in Unity Essentials, and you create 6 games in Unity Junior Programmer. Another benefit is the empowerment to create. Instead of using third-party tools which are expensive and limiting, learning Unity allows you to create more robust simulations than third-party tools for a fraction of the cost. Benefits of Unity Pathways related to cost, value, career perspective. They're free, have been since 2020. They contain short chunk micro-lessons with checkpoints where you can test your knowledge. They have a vibrant community of other learners where you can get questions answered. You earn badges by completing Pathways. And after you finish the pathway, for example, Junior Programmer, then the next step is actually a Certified User Programmer exam. So here's a guiding question. Would it make sense for someone with an education background but no game development experience to even ponder trying to learn Unity? Yes. Yes, it would be. Would make sense. So now that we've talked about benefits an instructional designer might have in terms of learning Unity, I will talk about challenges, lessons, and tips from my experience going through Pathways. I'll also talk a little bit about my previous gaming experience, and again, more details about my Unity Pathways journey. This journey has not been easy, so I'm going to focus on challenges represented by the red dragon, lessons others might find useful, represented by the chalkboard, and tips educators in my shoes might find helpful, represented by the yellow sticky. Let's talk about past gaming experience. My prior gaming experience consisted primarily of the Atari 2600 and Commodore 64. And yes, I realize I am dating myself, but that's fine. As I was and still am a Mac user, I never really got into PC gaming. I also realized that there were not many games for the Mac. Thus, I played a few games on my iPhone, but wanted more engagement and possibilities. So the beginning of my journey with XR, it seems so long ago, but it was less than 2 years ago. My journey began in August 2021 when I got my first VR headset, an Oculus Quest 2, for my birthday. I skeptically began downloading and playing games on the headset and was immediately struck by the immersive aspect of VR games. In short, I felt like I was part of the game. I then became curious about how people actually created these games. A little bit of cursory research told me that there were 2 primary game engines, Unity and Unreal Engine. My main criteria for choosing a game engine was that it would be easy for beginners to learn, as I wanted to focus my time on learning, as opposed to getting frustrated and intimidated by the game engine I was trying to learn. I chose Unity for 2 main reasons. First, I heard it was the best choice for beginners. Second, I heard something about Unity Pathways which intrigued me. So what are Unity Pathways? Wait, is this the Unity Pathway? If so, where does it lead? What will I learn from it? Think of Unity Pathways as free, practical, guided learning courses designed to help you master Unity. Even though VR initially piqued my interest, I wanted to make sure to start from the beginning with Unity Essentials, which I did, then Junior Programmer, which I'm currently working on, and then the next step will be VR development. So let's start with Unity Essentials. Again, the pathway takes 2 to 3 weeks to complete. It's kind of the foundational one. I started myself on October 1st of 2022, and I finished on the 16th. And this pathway really involved a couple of steps. First, installing Unity, installing the software, and then creating a 2D game and a 3D game. So, installing the software. So here are the system requirements in terms of thinking about installing Unity. What some of you may realize, some of you that may have worked with heavy-duty programs like Unity or other programs like Blender or Premiere Pro, heavy-duty programs like that require a lot of resources, CPU and GPU resources. So again, it's important to pay particular attention to minimum system requirements because programs like Unity can be quite memory intensive. So that is something important to understand. But the next question was, okay, do I install the Unity Hub or the Unity Editor? Both. So again, I realized that you need both the Hub and the Editor. As the Unity Hub, that allows you to actually install versions of the Unity software and manage your Unity projects. Okay? But the Editor is what you're actually going to use to build your games and projects. So remember, you need the Hub so that you can actually install the Unity software, manage different projects, install multiple versions of that Unity software. But the Editor is what you're going to use to actually build your projects with Unity. So once the software was installed, I realized it was time to get started to learn Unity. And again, right from the beginning, I was very impressed by the solid instructional design of the training. I mean, look, for everything we do, they have clear, smart, measurable objectives, which I was extremely impressed with. So, lessons learned in terms of Unity Essentials. Take it one small piece at a time. I can't emphasize this enough. When you're getting into 2D, 3D, all of this is brand new. So it's critical to take it one small piece at a time, save regularly, and create regular backups. For example, in Unity, it's possible with a couple of clicks to create a backup of your whole project that you can then open up very easily. So again, creating backups is super, super important. Other helpful tips involve the mission checkpoints. That's a great way to test your knowledge, and also leveraging the community if you need help. There are certain things that are confusing at first, but again, reaching out to the community is definitely a great way to get those questions answered quickly and efficiently. So, let's start talking about the projects from Unity Essentials. We have a 2D PANINKO game. So here was the challenge. We have to create a 2D scene in Unity, some new graphics, sprite graphics, and then we need to apply some physics to these graphics to make them move. So when we take a look at the game, we see that the triangle and the square have gravity applied to them. They're moving, and the circles are all frozen in place. Okay? So the next one is the 3D floor lava game. So now, this is a 3D application. So we create a 3D scene, and we're going to create new primitives, and a primitive would basically be just a solid object. So it could be a sphere, it could be a cube, for example. could be a cone. And so basically for this particular one, the goal was to create lava. So you'll see there's lava on the floor. Then there's a ramp, and you can see this object, it's had physics applied to it, so it rolls down the ramp. The junior programmer is a lot more intense than Essentials. Essentials is 2 to 3 weeks. Junior programmer is 12 weeks. And part of the reason for the extra time is that junior programmer, you're actually writing code to make things happen. Okay? So as I mentioned, junior programmer takes about 12 weeks to complete. I started this pathway on December 26th of 2022. Still working on it. I've got about 8 hours left, but who's counting? But again, junior programmer is basically 6 code-based projects of increasing difficulty. So again, in the Essentials pathway, you have these different spheres and cubes and objects that you apply gravity to get them to move and roll down, down and everything. But in junior programming, you're actually using code to control different things. And so herein lies the additional complexity. So lessons learned in terms of junior programmer. Well, watch and do is a critical one. In other words, the instructor will demonstrate something in a video. The key is to watch that video yourself and then do what you're supposed to do. If you try to watch it and concurrently do what the instructor's doing, it's a recipe for disaster. Especially when we're involving code, one small mistake can take a lot of time to fix. So again, you want to watch the instructor video and then do it. Watch and do. Watch and do. You also want to follow the sequential order of the content in the pathway. So, again, the mission will have projects, tutorials, checkpoints. You want to follow the order of the sequence. That is, again, another important piece of advice. In terms of helpful tips, one of the biggest helpful tips that I have involves using an application called Visual Studio. Now, the good news is it is actually, when you install Unity, it's part of the install, but you do need to set it to be the editor. So what Visual Studio does is it's what you use to write the code, and it actually, similar to autocomplete, it creates automatic code suggestions. So you might be typing something and it will suggest it for you, and then you can avoid making typos through these automatic code suggestions. When you're learning, it's extremely useful to have these auto code suggestions and autocomplete, because otherwise it's very easy to make a mistake. It could be one extra period or space or lack of a semicolon, and the code won't work, and it could take a long time to debug it. So I would suggest, again, using Visual Studio. If you use a text editor like Brackets or other text editors, they don't have the automatic code suggestions that Visual Studio has, and so you are more likely to make errors. Again, programming requires accuracy, and autocomplete kind of promotes that accuracy. So let's talk about the projects themselves. So player control was the first project in Junior Programmer, and it's significant because it's more complex. You're actually controlling the player or the truck. So you use the arrow keys in the demo to maneuver the truck around the obstacles. And again, the first coding project. Okay, basic gameplay. This is a little bit more complicated. You are a farmer moving the arrow keys left to right, clicking the space bar to feed the animals with pizza. So there's several different animals, a fox, a moose, another animal. And these animals automatically appear, they spawn or appear randomly. And so that is part of the fun of the game, is building in that functionality to the animals appear from different places. We're not sure where they're going to appear from or how many. So that is kind of more complex. Sound and effects. This next one is the sumo battle prototype. So this particular one involves, you are the checkered character who's being chased by 3 enemies, these white enemies, and then you grab the power-up to repel the enemies, which is the gem, and then, so again, they keep coming back. There's new waves of enemies. Once you repel them, they keep coming back. So again, you can tell that this is getting more complicated in terms of the game design. And finally, a personal project. This particular project subsumed many concepts learned doing the junior programmer pathway. So it was actually a good way that they handled this, because there was kind of a lab interspersed through these other projects. And so the lab is basically the personal project. So you start with, very simple mock-up of the enemy and the player, and then you kind of convert that into a game, as I've done here for this personal project. So now I have several questions for you to end. First, do you want to learn valuable new skills and make yourself more marketable? Second, are you eager to save money on third-party tools and start creating things yourself? Third, do you want to earn badges that are measurable and verifiable? Fourth, do you want to learn all these things for free? The answer is Learn Unity. Here's my contact information. And thank you so much. It was an honor presenting today.